Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Indian Standard Time. All good things come with patience, and the next two sessions, I can assure you, which will set you off in the direction of lunch, feeling satisfied on more than one count. For these next two speakers, I am not going to make an introduction because it's almost superfluous to do so. I would very much like to first of all call on Shelley Page, who is a friend, philosopher, guide and a champion of many things Indian, to share with us the little nuggets that she carries around, usually in her laptop, and unleashes on unsuspecting audiences everywhere in the world. And I can promise you, for those who are not in this room, it's entirely their loss. So without further ado, Shelley, could you please come forward and captivate us as usual?
Thank you very much. Very touching. I gather I'm an hors d'oeuvre. It's wonderful to be back here. A year ago, I was standing here looking for the first time at a slightly different perspective to those presentations that I think are quite often held at events like this. And that made me a little nervous because my role is very hard to define, and I know that because I've been trying to do it to various people all week. But one of the things I'm involved with is looking for new talent, and particularly building relationships with institutions and organizations who can help nurture and support that new talent. And so in the context of this particular event, I think it's interesting to take forward the dialogue that I kind of started last year, which was really focused mostly on design. I come from the production side of animation. I started off as an artist many years ago. The first feature film I ever worked on was Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which was made in London, although by the Walt Disney Company. And at that moment in time, the animation industry in London had a lot of incredibly inspiring individuals, but not the breadth and the depth of talent to put together a team to work on a very high profile feature film. So we had to bring in talent from all over the world to augment the artists already in London, and it was a very fast learning curve. And I've carried that experience with me in the sort of intervening 20 years. And so today, when I'm looking at work from new artists, work from studios, I'm familiarizing myself with, just trying to get a sense of the landscape that I find myself in, I'm always referring back to that experience. So what I encountered then was probably not so different from those of you who are in the industry working in the studio level deal with today. So what I'm going to focus on in this session, which is supposed to be half an hour, so I'm looking closely at what the time is now, is sort of an international perspective on young talent development, both sourcing it, offering support to the schools and institutions, and also the initiatives coming out of the studios, because India in particular is very rich in support from individual companies who've either set up their own training environments or schools or various different descriptions of what they do, or they support wonderful existing institutions like Arena and Big Aims and all these schools that are very well represented here today. So from the international perspective, I think what's, to me, useful to be aware of for those of you who aren't, are the various support organizations that have existed and have been instrumental in creating awareness for what's happening in the industry at the kind of top level, if you want to call it that, where we're looking for the sort of feature film quality artists and projects. And it's really the international schools that have made it possible for those of us in the industry, and I mean the broader industry, to come up with the creative leadership that is absolutely key. I know that a lot of you are involved with technology in its various forms. I'm probably the least technical person in the room, but unless you have that creative and innovative structure within your leadership teams, it won't get you where you need to get to. So on that point, apart from those of you who I know well, how many of you in this room are currently involved in studios that either create or involved with animation in some form? And how many of you are from educational institutions? So, okay, that's a sort of a good cross-section. So what I'm saying is not completely irrelevant. Good, that's encouraging. There are two aspects of what happens internationally, and I'm going to focus mainly on Europe, and I brought a few case studies just to sort of pinpoint in a very brief period of time what has been very significant for my studio and other studios I'm very familiar with. One is the very, very high quality of a very select group of international schools, mostly located in Europe. Obviously France is very well known, and Germany. And those events and organizational structures that have been able to create these platforms. And what I'm going to start with is just showing one new project which I think encapsulates why we talk so much about how influential this top European talent is. Can we have the lights down for this because it's very dark? Just thinking about it. Right, yeah. We need to have them right off. Down. Light off. First of all, this is a student film. Second of all, it was made by 3 people. And third of all, this represents the highest level of attainment at the student level in the world. And it's not just me saying that. This won the Best in Show at the SIGGRAPH conference this summer, which is the highest award for the visual effects industry. So it beat ILM, DreamWorks, you name it. And second of all, it's just won the Best Student Award at SIGGRAPH Asia. It's just been announced. So internationally, this represents the absolutely top of Everest. It's an amazing achievement. These students are in no way typical. They have completed 6 years of education at the leading institute in the world for visual effects and animation. And that's why I wanted to choose this particular school for a case study. Last year I was talking more about the French schools, but I think the Film Academy in Stuttgart, which is where this film originated, is a very good example for 2 reasons. Partly because of the excellence of the graduates, who are extraordinary, and studios come every year flocking for graduates like this. But secondly, because of the quality of the school, because of the quality of the education offered there, and the close interaction that the studio, the faculty has with studios worldwide, they've created a platform by hosting this extraordinary event, FMX, which happens every year in May, which if any of you are unaware of now, I recommend you to